Good morning and welcome to the Football Show. It's Friday and joining us today we'll have Emil Heskey. We'll hear maybe from Gareth Barry, from Steve Bruce and from David Seaman. And with us to go through all of that, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher. But there is only one place to start. We're all a bit giddy this morning, Patrick Davison. That's why, because Pat's here.
Always good to have me on, Kelly, especially in my good mood pink shirt.
Yeah, but you're going to tell us what we're in a good mood about.
Shall I start? Yes, shall I start? Yeah. Of course, only one story in town. We've known the announcement was coming for a few days as the mood and the momentum swung behind Project Restart. And of course, we know football still faces many more challenges, but still fantastic, exciting news for so many people yesterday as the Premier League announced that, subject to safety requirements being met, that the Premier League would return on Wednesday, June 17th. So, Jamie, let's bring you straight in there. Of course, you're a former player, you're a pundit, but you're also a football fan. How did you feel when you heard the news yesterday?
Yeah, I was excited for it. It's probably similar in some ways for when the season starts back again when we're off for the summer. And, you know, I think we're all in the same boat that we love our football. That's the same for a lot of people up and down the country. And it did give you that little bit of excitement and buzz that it was coming back, because I think for different times while we've been off, at times I felt confident the game would resume. At other times I felt it's not going to happen. You know, different things every day were popping up at different times, and there was different problems being brought to the Premier League, whether from different clubs or obviously safety issues, and it felt like a huge task to get over all the obstacles really for the Premier League. So I actually think the Premier League have done really well. I think they deserve a lot of credit at times. I think over this process, I think even on this show at times we've been critical of different things, but to actually, you know, 20 clubs. Bring them with them. The players now, as we mentioned a few weeks, also broadcasters, not just in this country, around the world as well. You've got to, you know, think there's money gets paid back, rebates. So I don't think it's been easy at all. But when you set that date in stone, it's something for us all to look forward to over the next few weeks. I think we all got a little bit excited as well when the Bundesliga started to watch, you know, just watch a few games really. But this is on a different level now in terms of the Premier League to come back. But it's not just about being excited about it coming back. It's a serious situation, certainly for a lot of clubs, in terms of, I think, possibly staying up. It's the thing that's really at stake in the next 9 games to be played. So it looks like games on every day, different times. We're going to be very busy, and that's what we want.
Gary, are you surprised by the
What's that?
You might not be. You might not get selected for a lot of games.
I'll be fair.
Gary, I've heard from
you run out of energy.
At risk of going full Alan Partridge, Gary, I think you're going to be very busy because I've got a little show idea for you. Gary Neville's Premier League Marathon. Let's get you to all 64 of them if we can.
Anything to get me out of here, Pat, to be honest with you.
Is that what Emma says?
Yeah.
Emma's just done his makeup. What's he having to go in here for?
Yeah, I was told that I had bags under my eyes this morning. So no, I think obviously I agree with Jamie. There have been times over this last few months. In the initial phase, I thought that the Premier League would come back. I was 100% sure. And then probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think the lack of communication and what would seem to be a lack of leadership, I felt just cast doubt over everything. Obviously, the country was at its peak at that time. I do feel a big moment with Steve Parish coming out, and I think it took courage and bravery for him to come out and did that piece that he did that weekend, which was against the grain at the time. And I remember coming out and reading it. It's the first person really to come out with any authority and speak in such a way which made sense about how the game could restart again and why it should restart again. So I think that now, obviously, you look at the fixtures, you look at the games. I still, in the back of my mind, obviously, hope and pray that everything moves safely right the way through the process. We're not out of the woods yet in terms of, but it is a big moment. Obviously, I think the Bundesliga has helped in terms of giving confidence to the players and managers in the Premier League themselves. So we're looking forward to it. Obviously, every game is going to be live. There's going to be games shown to everybody in the country as well, which I think is a huge positive.
Okay, so on that note, should we give a few details here? 92 games remaining. All of them will be broadcast live. 64 on Sky. 25 of those, including Everton v Liverpool on what will be the first full weekend, will be free to air. And remember, that Merseyside derby could well be the day that Liverpool clinch the title. So, Gary, you are going to be busy. And I just, on that note of, we've heard it a few times from the government, it might lift morale. What effect do you think it will have, certainly on those in the public that love football?
It won't lift my morale that day. That's for sure. I think that I think the thing for me yesterday about it was the thing that actually the 25 games were going to be shown to everybody in the country. I think it was a huge thing to do. I think it was the right thing to do. Obviously, we work for Sky. We know obviously how important it is that and how much Sky pay for the Premier League. That obviously we show games, but it's also really important in this time to demonstrate an approach which is inclusive. And I think yesterday that was the masterstroke of the announcement, that it allowed other broadcasters in this country to show games that haven't even obviously paid for them. And I do think that ultimately it will have a big impact, and I do think that is a masterstroke of a decision that has been made to do that.
Okay, I think we can actually look at the fixtures now from that first Wednesday and also the first weekend. We could be off to a really fast start, because on that Wednesday, it's the games that had to be rescheduled because of the Carabao Cup final. So Villa v Sheffield United. Villa could climb out of the bottom three that night. Sheffield United could go above Man United into fifth. And also Man City against Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. Of course, Arteta there against the club who helped make him as a coach. And then if we go on to that first weekend, first full set of fixtures, we'll get to that Merseyside derby in a sec. But, Jamie, the first thing that stands out there in terms of it being a really fast start, you were talking about the games being crucial, especially for teams looking to stay up. Just look at the number of home games there, like real big, almost must-win games for the teams at the bottom. Villa at home, Bournemouth at home, Brighton at home, Norwich there at home to Southampton, Watford against Leicester. That sort of sticks out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because we've looked at the table for so long now and there's been talk of points per game. I still think it seems like that's still going to be used if, you know, the worst comes to the worst and the league doesn't finish after starting. But so each week it almost still feels important where you are in the league. So yes, I think there's a 2-point gap. I think there's a few teams on 27 points and I think there's a team on 29. But that can all easily change within that first 3 or 4 days, because certainly Villa have got 2 games in there. You know, if they get 6 points out of that, things can totally change. And there's such a long time as well, really, between now and the end of the season. 9 games is a lot, and a lot of points to play for, really. So that is the big interesting thing for us, I think, coming back. I think we know Liverpool are going to win the league. Maybe the Champions League places. You mentioned Sheffield United, Chelsea, Man United. I didn't actually realise how close Arsenal and Spurs were in some ways. If Man City are taking out the competition for next season, it obviously means that 5th in the table is a Champions League place. So there's a lot to play for there, really, in that setup. So I think that's going to be the exciting thing for us. Those positions are certainly down at the bottom. But I think it's very clever and right of the Premier League to almost get those games out the way, the teams that have got games in hand, really, because, as I said, if the worst is to come to the worst, if the season doesn't finish after starting, it probably is really important for everyone to be on the same points, and then they can do almost the points per game if that's what it looks like they're going to do, whether we think that's right or not.
Patrick, am I right in saying that those games that you've just shown there, every single one of them will be live and they'll be spread over 4 days? Have you decided which games are on which day yet on those weekends?
Not on the weekend. I've got the schedule here. So every weekend you'll have a Friday night 8 p.m. Then you'll have Saturday at 12:30, Saturday at 3, Saturday at 5:30, and Saturday at 8 p.m. Then Sunday 12 to 4:30 and 7 o'clock. And Monday 8 o'clock. So you'll just probably need a bike to get you in between.
What times do you want to do, Gary?
Well, that's why I was asking. I was just wondering what point in the week.
Well, have you got other things to do? Have you?
Just get my fitness session in and I walk to the Marks and Spencer for my croissants.
You've changed, Gary. Gary, what about that start for Man United at Tottenham? There's no easing in there, is there?
No, no, absolutely not. But I think that's the thrilling thing about that fixture list when you look at it with the Merseyside derby, Tottenham, obviously versus Manchester United. You've got all the games of importance at the bottom. There was never going to be a pre-season. There was never going to be a soft introduction to this. It was going to be straight into it. And I think that's a good thing. I actually was talking on the show on Wednesday. I think, Pat, you were on, and I think there has been some suggestions that there'll be a 4 to 5 week training requirement for players to come back in and play. I, again, was delighted yesterday when they announced that it was starting so quickly, because it just means that the players can really focus now. If you said to the players they're going to start in the first week in July or last week in June, you're almost like, like 2.5 weeks away from that, game is like a big thing. And I think that, to me, it's the right thing that we get on with it and get it over as quickly as possible, let alone get it started as quickly as possible.
Do you think the break will be good for United? In fairness, they were in pretty decent form before it, but Pogba back, Rashford back as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, but I think Tottenham are going to have Son and Kane back. So I think for both those clubs, they're going to be confident that they're in better shape because of the injury recoveries. We don't know. We have no idea how each club is going to return. That is the one thing about this. There's no sort of form guide to look at in respect to the fact that the gap's been so big since they last played. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Liverpool could lose all 9 games.
And still probably win the league.
Look, Gary's brought it back round to Liverpool, Jamie, and one of the suggestions is this idea of neutral venues for some of the games, one of which could be the Merseyside derby.
New
Where
Zealand.
do you stand on that? Having a mixture of
New Zealand,
of neutral venues and home ground.
Well, listen, this point came up a few weeks ago. It was more to do with the bottom 6 as opposed to maybe the teams at the top. And it was come from obviously a safety issue, maybe come from the government and the police. And I think you just have to accept that. I think Liverpool fans may find it difficult that they're almost not being trusted more than maybe other supporters at other clubs if their games are at home. But I think Liverpool supporters right now will just be more pleased than anything that the season looks like it's going ahead and Liverpool kind of officially win the league, if you like, rather than have Gary's asterisk with it. But I think it's not just Liverpool, the game that they maybe win the league. I think it may be other big derby games I've seen and other maybe games involving the 2 relegation teams that it's really important near the end of the season. So I don't think it'll just be Liverpool that'll be affected by that. But to be honest, I'm not too worried or bothered about that. There's no one in the ground anyway. So it's not like supporters having to travel to a neutral ground or anything like that. And if that's what the government or the Premier League or the police think is the safest way, that's always been the most important thing. Player safety and obviously fan safety, or whether people congregate outside the ground, is most important to the safety issue, not the football.
Gary, we've seen everybody filling beaches because the weather's been nice over half term, as much as that's made a difference to people in this time. We've seen people, doing the conga and oops upside your head to celebrate VE Day. And at that stage, there were television crews there saying, isn't it fantastic that the country's getting together, that are keeping morale up? Why are football fans being treated differently?
I'm not sure. I think just purely the sort of scale of football. I mean, let's be clear, if Liverpool won the league in an ordinary period of time, there would be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Liverpool fans on the streets. It's such a big moment for the club in the sense that obviously they haven't won it for so long. It's a momentous moment. It's a great achievement in its own right, let alone the fact that the club haven't won it for so long. So I think that just that is the only potential flashpoint that I can see. And I don't think it's because Liverpool fans can't be trusted in the sense of the fact of their behaviour. I think they would go out in their cars. The situation I could see potentially, if they went out in the cars with the flags out the window and they would still be socially distancing, they'd still be in the households, but they'd be blocking the routes potentially to hospitals, or potentially blocking the routes for health and safety procedures. So I don't think football fans are being treated differently. It's just the sheer scale of the number of Liverpool fans that would, if you said you can celebrate, you can go out, what it would be like, Kelly, Cara, exactly what it'd be like. It would be absolute bedlam around Liverpool, and rightly so. I mean, you would absolutely think that would be the case. So I think that the reason they're nervous about it is purely because of that, I would imagine.
Jamie, what do you think that will be the mentality of the Liverpool players at the moment? Because for weeks, months even, we've been talking about, we've got to get it back on so Liverpool can be crowned. We're almost kind of talking about it again now, but they've still got to win games. They've got to go out and do it. I don't think any player ever likes talking as if something's done already. So how will they be thinking and feeling?
Listen, Liverpool have won the league, Pat. I mean, Gary just joked before about Liverpool losing every game. I honestly believe if Liverpool lost every game, the league would probably still be won because, City have got to win every game and it's not going to be easy for any team at this stage. The players have said, and I think Jordan Henderson's come out plenty of times in interviews and said, it's not won yet, it's not won yet. Listen, at the end of the season or when it's won for Liverpool, all the players will probably say, I think we knew about Christmas time we had a great chance, but they just know they can't say it publicly because there's nothing worse than, saying it. It's just a thing in football. Maybe in different sports, they do just come out and say, you see how probably confident, cocksure, maybe boxers are at different times. But I think in football, we're always told to, you never take anything for granted. But I mean, the position Liverpool are in, I mean, it's just what game it's going to happen in. I think Liverpool fans are probably a little bit maybe excited yesterday that it could be against Everton, but it certainly wouldn't have been the way it was portrayed maybe a few months ago when it could be as good as sitting in front of the crowd and you rub it into your neighbour's face. It's not even going to be at probably either ground if that's the case now. So I think for Liverpool players now it's just get it won as quickly as possible, and then it's an interesting one really from Liverpool's point of view because if Liverpool do win the league in the first couple of games, they're probably the one team in the league, or one of a few teams in the league who probably haven't got that much to play for. And it's how Jurgen Klopp then uses those games. Is it almost like not so much a pre-season, but a build-up to next season? Would he almost give his squad a game? Would that then, people talk about the integrity of the league as well, because it does look like there won't be much of a break between the end of this season and going into next season. So this is almost, for the clubs who are in a fortunate position where they haven't got too much riding on it, they're actually almost getting ready for next season in some ways, maybe some of those teams in the middle of the table as well. So that'd be interesting what Jurgen does between whenever Liverpool win the league and the end of the season.
Gary, do you think we might see teams with a lot of home games left and teams that have been very reliant on their home form struggle a little? Because that's been one example from Bundesliga, is that home form has tailed off a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously we know we're going to be watching a strange form of football that isn't representative of what we're used to, and that will mean that results might be slightly different. The pressure on the away team that would ordinarily be there won't be there, and the home team won't feel as comfortable. If you go a goal down in a game at home and the crowd really sort of come behind you to get you going again, that isn't just going to happen. But all teams are going to have to contend with those issues. We know that ultimately it's a blessing that football's being played. I think we should think of ourselves as being fortunate that football's being played. A lot of other sports aren't being played. They've had to cancel, whether it be tennis or other tournaments. We know that obviously the lower leagues in football are likely not to play. So, I think the fact that we've got football, it's costing a lot to put it on. The testing regimes, the health and safety protocols. So I don't think we can complain about the fact that we might get some odd results.
Gary, you've talked a lot about the impact that this has had on the EFL as well. Does the fact that the Premier League is planning to resume, does that help the Championship get organised?
Yeah, I think the Championship will go ahead. And I think that because of what's at stake, I do think it is sad, to be fair, that the funding can't be put in place for League One and League Two, and that we're going to see clubs like Stevenage and Tranmere probably lose their status in their leagues without even having an opportunity to play for it, down to economic reasons, because the funding isn't there to support playing football at that level. But I do think the Championship will play. I do think that'll be something that'll happen pretty quickly after the Premier League. We all know, obviously, how important it is to the likes of Leeds and West Brom at the top of that league, and everything that they've invested, not just financially but emotionally, into get into the Premier League, and how important it is for them as clubs. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to in terms of football, not just at Premier League level, but obviously at Championship level, and the playoffs likely at League One and Two as well.